Nintendo is seemingly suing Pal World over a Pokeball patent. Nintendo hasn't officially confirmed why it's using Pal World developer Pocket Pair, but it seems that it
Suing.
could. What?
You said suing.
So you might.
I tried to, but it was getting like, okay, no, that popped up fine.
There we go. I'll start over from the beginning. Nintendo hasn't officially confirmed why it's suing Pal World developer Pocket Pair, but it seems that it could be based on a Pokeball patent and how Pal World's Pal Spheres directly copy the mechanic. Just a few days ago, Nintendo dropped an absolute bombshell on the internet by revealing that it's suing Pal World developer Pocket Pair. While nearly everyone speculated that might happen when the game released earlier this year and took a lot of liberties with its Pal World designs, PAL designs, the real shock came from the lawsuit being based on the claim that the Pal World, quote, infringes multiple patent rights, end quote. Pocket Pair has since replied to the lawsuit and confirmed that it's going to be fighting it, despite apparently not knowing what patents it's infringing on. Nintendo hasn't revealed any more details about the situation just yet, but it seems that it might be based on a Pokeball patent that was originally filed in 2021 and then updated in the summer. Weird Pokemon patent graphic here. As reported by Eurogamer, this information comes from Japanese patent attorney Kiyoshi Kurihara, who spoke to the Yahoo Japan and shared more details about the patent itself and why it might be the focal point of the lawsuit. As you can see above, the patent is centered around how a Pokeball works as a capture item and how a successful capture results in it being, quote, owned by the player, end quote. Of course, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that Pal World's Pal Spheres, which work in the exact same way and only differentiate with the name and design, would be infringing on the patent. According to Kurihara, the patent, which was jointly filed by the Pokemon Company and Nintendo, was added to an existing, quote, parent patent from December 2021, the summer of this year. This makes the added-on patent seem like a direct response to Pal World, and one of the main reasons why Nintendo is suing Pocket Pair. It also means that the patent can be used by Nintendo in the lawsuit, and is likely one of the, quote, multiple patent rights, end quote, it claims Pocket Pair is infringing on in Pal World. It's worth noting that Nintendo claim is focused on, quote, multiple patents it feels Pocket Pair are infringing on, and there's likely a bit more to the story than the Pokeball one shown above. Since Nintendo hasn't revealed anything else so far, though, it is best guess that any of us have about the situation. Nintendo has a reputation for suing and suing and suing.
Yeah, we thought this would come a lot sooner, and we thought it would be over the actual creature designs, not the Pokeball thing. In terms of suing on the mechanic, I think that's kind of dirty. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel good. Especially because, like, the art is so fucking similar from Pals to Pokemon that, like, I would have bet hardcore real-world money that, like, that's what we were going to be sued over, not the idea of throwing a ball and then capturing the thing as a mechanic. I kind of cringe at the idea at game mechanics being patented. We had the same problem with Shadow of Mordor, where the Nemesis system got patented, and that's why you never really saw it in any other video game after that. And you just kind of cringe at that and go, really? Like, nobody else can play with that idea? These are ideas. Like, you don't see the NFL patenting throwing a ball, right? Or you don't see the NBA patenting dribbling a ball. Like, that's not something that happens, you know? So it's just weird that in video games we're kind of breaking ground on that idea, of course. And then, of course, also Nintendo updating their patent in the summer of this year, well after Pal World did what it did. That's greasy. That's nasty.
It is. And I mean, what would you expect from a company that's making a guy who emulated something, Nintendo, and making him pay basically the rest of his life? He's indebted to the fucking Nintendo Corporation. So we always talk about how Nintendo is one of the better players in the industry. And that is true with how they treat their staff. But besides that, they are typically, the usual. Yes, we assume. We haven't heard anything at all. In fact, the only things we've seen is them, having their CEOs, executives take pay cuts in exchange for the fact that their company wasn't doing so well. Happened back in like the 2013s, 2014s, or whatever. The era where they weren't doing all that great. So it's not surprising that they didn't do this. I think they could be trying to draw them in to accepting the lawsuit and then unveiling those ones that are related to character design and who knows, whatever the fuck else.
You would do that at the same time. You can't like sue and then sue again later. Like that's not something that happens. So yeah, it would have to be all at once.
But
of
it's
course, we
multiple
don't
patents, which like kind of
yes, but like, did you patent every character?
That's what I'm not sure about. We don't know. You know,
yeah.
they don't. Pocket Pair doesn't know.
But
They're
like
just rising
also
up
at the
to
same
challenge.
time, it's like it wouldn't be a. Well, maybe it would be, but it wouldn't necessarily be like a patent infringement. I forget the actual term of it, but it would be like, dude, you're clearly aping this. Like you're writing off of the success of what we have here.
Yeah.
Like I forget what it's called, franchise something or other. I forget. Not lawyers here, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, I mean to specifically do it after the Pokeball mechanic of throw a thing out, it captures the thing, you own the thing. That's dirty. Like at that point, like I don't know what else can you do that for. Like what other game is that type of function? I don't know.
Kind of as you said, this is kind of new ground because you brought up the baseball stuff, like the football thing, patenting that, throwing a ball. It really becomes messy when you're talking about the creative space rather than just like a physical action.
Yeah.
And it's untreaded ground. We don't exactly have patents everywhere for video games. And
right, but video games being an interactive medium that, like, I would argue that the player character is the extension of the player's body, for all purposes. So, like, the idea of, like, throwing a capture device should be able to be, like, relatable to all other games, you know what I mean? It's still the player doing it. It doesn't matter that, like, the mechanic itself. I just don't think mechanics should be patented. Like that shouldn't be something that is copyrighted and you can go after other people for doing similar things like that. Like at that point, Nintendo, why aren't you patenting jumping, with Mario? Like, what, every video game you can't jump anymore now? Like, where does it end? You know what I'm saying?
I don't think it really ends anywhere with Nintendo. I think they'll just, they'll always be the lawsuit guys.
But why are they in on this but not on that is my point. Like maybe to my perspective, that's where this argument falls apart, is because it's like, well, I mean, you guys have other mechanics. You don't patent those. Like, so like, and there's no guidelines on what can or can't be patented in terms of video game mechanics. So like now it's just the wild, wild west of this shit and you just do it to whoever you want.
I mean, I'll once again bring up the story of the guy who's indebted to Nintendo Company. I also remember the massive amount of copyright strikes they did against their music, and basically made it on YouTube.
But like that's different.
But it's the whole concept of them being really out there and
litigious.
active.
Yes, yeah. Nintendo is overly litigious. Yes, but you would imagine it would be over the fact that all the pals look like Pokemon. Like there's like. Yes. Some of them are literally just color swaps.
We would think, definitely. But that's the thing. They have such a history of doing these lawsuits. I would think they would have people that know what they're doing. And they could have looked at this and said, well, all of these other claims, it's kind of up in the air because really at that point, it's just like the creative design of a creature or a monster or something like that.
Yeah, but that doesn't excuse just because they want to go after someone. They can't just make something up now or add on something to the patent after this other thing became popular in order to go after that. That's greasy and dirty. Like that's fucked up.
Which is why it might be the way they don't.
And again,
in this lawsuit.
Again, Pal World is not going to affect the sales of Pokemon Legends ZA or whatever the fuck the next one's called. Like that one's still going to sell bajillion copies, right? So like. What, like, why? Just because you just don't want a competitor in the space?
I think that's, yeah.
Yes.
They're very protective.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't really call Pal World a competitor. You know what I'm saying?
They don't really care if you're a competitor or not. Once again, they did it to some random guy. They did it to YouTube channels.
Well, yeah, but that's because you're actually taking their assets and doing something with it. This is not taking their assets.
They see it as such. I mean, clearly they're a company that...
Connor, I don't think you understand what they're suing over here. They're suing over the mechanic of throwing a capture device and the thing that you're throwing it at becomes yours. Yeah. That's what they're suing it over. Like, and that's bullshit. If it was a sue over, hey, your fucking creatures look like our creatures, then yeah, I would get that because it's like, all right, yeah, you're clearly stealing art there or you're stealing like a direct IP there, clearly. Right? But it's the fact that it's like, hey, there's this like really vague mechanic that we're going to sue over. We're going to update our patent so that then we can sue over. Like, that's bullshit. You had the rights to music and IP and creative liberties of those IPs. So when you go after guys for music or emulating games or making their own game with that character. I understand those things, or fan-made projects to like remake Mario 64 and stuff like that. I understand that because those guys are infringing on copyright laws that have previously been established and created. So that makes sense. And it's well within Nintendo's rights and power to go after those people. This, I'm not saying it's not within their rights to go after them, but your basis in which you are going after them is dirty. Like it's ugh. Like it just feels slimy. Like I feel like you're just going off of Nintendo's reputation and saying, "Oh, they do it for everybody else," but that's not what they're doing here. They're doing it in a different way that makes it gross.
No, I don't think so at all.
How?
Once again, I said it 4 times.
You understand the difference between this and that, right?
I get the difference.
Yeah.
They indebted a guy to them. They don't give a shit whether it's slimy, whether it's right or wrong. Those things go out the window.
But that guy crossed boundaries. In terms of this specific case, Pow World didn't.
But what's Nintendo's boundary? They don't really seem to have a set thing.
That's my point, is you should go after them. But the way you're talking, it sounds like, oh, well, Pow World should just fucking shut it down.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying this is just Nintendo's nature.
And look, I don't remember this story about the guy getting it. Do you have a detail on it?
Yeah, I did. It was like, I remember it was the most dystopian thing I've seen in anything related to the games industry. Because basically it's like, so he has to pay for damages or whatnot, and it's so much of a price, and he has no job that's able to, meet the requirements of being able to pay it off fully. So he's just kind of screwed.
Switch hacker Gary Bowser, released from jail, will pay Nintendo 25 to 30% income for the rest of his life. Jesus Christ. Yeah. It's from Video Games Chronicle. Chris Scullion. Bowser has paid $175 of the $14.5 million. That's fucking insane. Gary Bowser, the hacking group member who was convicted for creating and selling circumvention devices, enabling users to play illegal backups on Switch and 3DS, has been released from prison early. Yeah, so this guy was breaking the law. Like, yeah, it's fucked up that he has to pay nearly $15 million in damages. No normal human being can pay that off. That's way too much, repercussions for the actions. But he's still breaking the law.
Yeah.
And he was still infringing on copyright. This is not infringing on copyright. Like, you're being scummy with it. And this would be like if I sued you for drinking root beer in my house. What? What do you mean? Or just for drinking root beer? Because I like to drink root beer, and in this scenario, I'm known as the root beer guy. Mm-hmm. Like that, what? Why would I sue you over that? That's stupid. Just because you drink root beer with a straw?
Well, once again, you wouldn't do that.
Actually, it'd be like using a straw.
Yeah.
I'd be suing you over using a straw, but instead of a blue straw, it was a pink straw. And I'm suing you for that.
You know what? Nintendo probably would do that. They'd be like, fuck you. I don't care.
But why are you okay with that?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not okay with it. When have I said I'm okay with it?
You're acting like these stories are equivalent. They're not equivalent.
No, I'm saying the character of Nintendo is consistent. The stories themselves, yeah, they're not the exact same thing.
I think this is a reach for Nintendo. This is them not breaking character, but this is them overstepping.
Legally, yes. Like, in terms of the concept of them looking at something that they claim is theirs and saying, we're going to sue you because you use it. That's not, unsurprising for them to do. Like we said before.
Okay, but in law, you have to be specific. And here they are being specific, but in a different way than they have before. Like before, they sued people for stealing their shit, like this guy that you're talking about, who's indebted for the rest of his life. He was stealing their shit. So, stealing is wrong and illegal, and you shouldn't do it. So this guy got way over punished for it, in my personal opinion. But it's still well within Nintendo's right to do that.
See, and that's the thing, though. They just see this and say, "Hey, that's something that we did. That's something that we relate to us," and they just want to defend that.
Okay, so there cannot be a video game where you throw a capture device and then capture an animal for the rest of time?
Not one if they see it looks like theirs.
So then why doesn't Call of Duty or I get then at that point Microsoft can go after anybody because they own Doom for any first-person shooter ever.
But once again, speaking to Microsoft's character, they're not ones who are known to go out and be the guys who are suing people. Nintendo has a reputation for that.
They do, but they should have done it in line with their reputation, not create this whole new thing that opens up a door for something else entirely, which is way worse than anything they've ever done before.
Well,
before they've just protected their rights. Now they're overstepping their rights in order to close down and monopolize a game mechanic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about rights and whether they can or can't do something or not. I think they're just incredibly protective, and all of that stuff comes secondary. They're immediately like, I want to defend my stuff, and that's all that matters. All the legalese shit, who cares? We'll deal with that when we come. We're Nintendo. We're the big guys. We can pay our legal bills. We can hire the best lawyers that we can to try and make our case. They just want to, seemingly go out and sue to a point of irrationality. They're just wanting to do it because they're overprotective.
This is out of character for you.
Why?
Because normally this would enrage you. But for whatever reason, for this story, you're just kind of shrugging your shoulders at.
Well, it would enrage me if it's like going somewhere, Because as you said,
it's going to court. What do you mean?
I mean, like, once again, I'm just saying they're being protective of their stuff. I don't think this is going to have that much of a chance in a court.
But you don't see how if Nintendo wins in this scenario, this ruins video game development for the rest of time.
Didn't they kind of open that door already with the Nemesis system, as you talked about before?
It was WB, and nobody's gone near that system because they don't want to find out what happens there. That's why we haven't seen it. Nobody's tried yet.
Yeah.
It's not that they've gone after somebody and done it. It's just that they did it, and everybody went, I don't know if you can do that or not. I'm not trying to find out because nobody wants to get sued.
But this is a situation where someone did come close to. Like, clearly. It does look like it.
Oh, yeah. But, like, you should, like, if they were suing over the designs of the PALs, that'd be one thing. I'd be like, Nintendo doing Nintendo things. I would be like you. But they're not doing that. They're doing it over a mechanic. So, like, are you going to sue Like a Dragon for ripping off Animal Crossing in their latest game, too? Like, are you going to sue Nintendo? Are you suing Sega over that now? Like, where does it end? Hey, are you going to sue Sony because you have a character mascot game where he jumps on things? Mm-hmm. Like, where does it end? Like that's the problem with me is like you are ruining the idea of creative development for the rest of time if you win this case.
Yeah. But the thing is, I don't think they're going to be able to get somewhere with this case. I just don't think they have that much standing with it. If this was something that was like, oh shit, this could happen. I think this might, especially because it's a patent that was modified after the fact. So that's got to be some fucking breach of something, right?
I don't think this case is going to get thrown out.
You don't think so, huh?
No, I think they're going to settle out of court, and Our World Pocket Pair will probably have to like redesign the ball or whatever and turn it into some other thing. I don't know what. Give them a net. I don't know. But I don't see how this doesn't go to court, and I don't see how this doesn't go some distance. Mm-hmm. Like, if Pocket Pair has the funding, which I don't think they do, to actually compete, a court will have to make a choice on this because we've never seen anything like that before. At least nothing enacted in the court of law happened like that before. Again, with the Nemesis system, they didn't go to court over anything because nobody tried because nobody wanted to get sued. But here, yeah, they got as close as they could to copyright infringement on Pokemon as they could. Clearly, Nintendo believes they didn't get close enough to actually sue them over IP infringement. But instead, they want to do it over this idea of a mechanic, which I think is wrong.
Yeah.
Because that opens the door to a much more dangerous conversation. Nintendo is being shitty here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's no doubt at all. They don't need to be doing this at all.
You just shrugging your shoulders at this is throwing me off. Because
I just noticed,
if it was any other company, you'd be like, that's fucking bullshit. This is corporate greed, yada, 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 this, that, and the third. Like, but here you're just like, Nintendo.
Yeah, because I'm used to it with Nintendo.
But this isn't Nintendo doing Nintendo things. This is Nintendo overreaching.
I still think it is. They're overreaching, but it's still in the wheelhouse of what Nintendo would do.
But I disagree. I think this is way more. This is way more. Like, are you not considering the ramifications if this goes through?
I am. I'm just not as like, oh, this is going to lead to some like change in the industry. I just don't see that yet happening. Just because a lawsuit was announced.
I think it forces us to have the conversation of like, okay, well, what can you sue over in terms of video games?
Sure. I mean, if we're going that broader of a conversation,
like guidelines are going to have to be established if this keeps going, and I do believe it will keep going. So like we're gonna have to establish some types of guidelines, much like how we're establishing the case for AI. We're not covering the story about EA exec saying that AI is going to be implemented. But neither of us like that, and both of us would agree that oh man, that's really bad. Hey, you should really put some guidelines on in here and stuff like that. But here you're just like, it's Nintendo, so they get to do whatever they want.
Again, though, you bring up that story, I would act the exact same way because it's like, that's Ubisoft,
EA, but yeah,
EA, even worse. My bad. Because remember,
are they? I don't know if that's worse.
EA back in the day, they had said something about how the failed cloud gaming thing that occurred. Like they were saying that was the core of their their model going forward. They said this years ago.
Are you talking the streaming service, EA Play?
I think it was that. Yeah, I remember reading the article.
Yeah, because you conflate cloud and streaming.
Yeah,
those are two different things.
Yeah, I know. It was just something that didn't pan out, and they were like, "Hey, this is going to be the next big thing we do." It's EA jumping on the bandwagon of everything we've said about AI.
I don't know what. Okay,
I can find it later.
All right. Fine. All right. I guess we'll move on. This is the most. I'm genuinely how you're just whatever.
Yeah, because Nintendo's not fucking surprising. It's not like someone's getting screwed over in a horrible, horrible way. That story I keep bringing up that impacts me way more than just the beginning of a lawsuit before we even know the details.
But that guy was doing something actively wrong.
Wrong in the sense legally, yeah. Not really doing anything wrong.
He was stealing, Connor.
So?
What do you mean, so?
From Nintendo?
Stealing is wrong.
From Nintendo?
You can't just be from the big guy because it's a big guy. He was still stealing, and Nintendo was well within their right to go after that guy.
Yeah, and then the way they
I agree that the repercussions are way out of line. I don't think it's worth going to jail over, and I don't think it's worth $15 million of damages.
Which is what matters. Because if it was he had stolen something and then happened, I still would have been
Nintendo is in the right for going after that guy. I do not think they are in the right for going after Palworld for this reason.
No, they're not in the right, but they're rarely in the right when it comes to their legal shit. Because once again, they screwed this guy
they're
up.
in the right for suing that guy.
But the way they did it is what really matters at the end of the day. Yeah, if they sued him, they cut him in prison or whatever. It's story's done with. He went, that's what happens when you steal, their kind of fucking, you do the emulator shit. But then they went the step forward and were like, we're going to make this entire guy's life worse. I can get enraged about this story later on down the line. But again, this is just Pocket Pair doesn't even know what they're really fighting exactly.
Member of hacking group called Team Executor, which in 2013 began creating and selling circumvention devices, enabling users to play illegal ROMs on consoles, including Switch and 3DS. Bowser said he was released. Looking for more information. In the interview, Bowser claimed he was paid $175 of this to date, or he has paid, which came from the job he was doing in prison. Jesus Christ. It says that upon his release, he will have to start paying a percentage of his gross monthly income to Nintendo. With the agreement, the maximum they can take is between 25 and 30% of your monthly income. And I have up until 6 months before I have to start making payments. Jesus. In order to pay off Nintendo. This is my thing is I don't agree that what they did to this guy was right, but I do think Nintendo is fine for going after that guy. They are not okay for doing this. That's the difference.
Sure. I'm not at a place yet where I'm worried this is going to lead to something. It's too early to tell. It's a lawsuit, and they've done this before.
Yes, you are right conceptually, but the dangers that this could set as a precedent are fucking dangerous. Next thing you know, Ubisoft is saying you can't use towers in a video game in an open world setting, to unfold a map.
At that point,
and then Nintendo would be like, you can't use a glider in a video game ever again.
See, these are all that's stupid if that does happen. But in the case of what this is talking about, it's a device that has a specific design and a specific purpose within that universe.
Right, but setting precedent is what is important. It doesn't matter what happens after the precedent is set. It's the precedent that matters. And Nintendo is trying to set a very dangerous precedent here that will ruin video game development for the rest of its existence. Or until that precedent is repealed.
Yeah.
So you have to nip it in the bud when it happens, not when another company tries to do it later on down the line.
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't want that to happen. It just those examples you're bringing up are specific items that exist in the world today. Pokeballs do not exist in reality. They're a fake concept.
What do you mean?
Like you were saying, they could say gliders you can't use, towers you can't use. At that point, it's like, well, you're going to basically screw over an entire industry, and that's not good for anybody.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't think those courts would allow it to get to that point just because a lawsuit
But Connor,
says,
if the courts allow this to happen, then the rest of the guys can do it because it sets precedent. That's how law works. Is they go out, someone does something, they say, "Hey, what do we do in this scenario?" Okay, we do this. This is precedent set. And then now every single case afterwards will follow what they do here. Mm-hmm. This is the thing that ruins it all. Not Ubisoft doing it later, not Sony doing it later, not Microsoft doing it later, or even Nintendo doing it later with something else. Right now, this is where it happens. This is the fight. After that, it's whatever they did here will decide those. So if they say, no, dude, you can't sue someone over a game mechanic. It doesn't matter if it's similar, because their logic being, where does it stop? Because jumping is a game mechanic. Are you going to sue everybody for a game that has jumping in it now? You can't do that. That doesn't make sense, right? That's the precedent set. And then from there, okay, no gliding, open world towers, first person shooting, reloading a clip, anything, jumping, vaulting, climbing, all of these things will follow the precedent set in this case.
Which then I guess comes up the question of, would they allow that precedent to be set because of the ramifications of it? And would they deny this lawsuit on that basis?
That's the question. Mm-hmm. And that's why this is upsetting me, is because Nintendo is overreaching their rights, because if they felt that they did not have a strong enough case to go after Palworld because of art infringement, then they made up an excuse, and they're trying to set new parameters and break new rules and break new ground on shit that is dangerous in order to go after them, because they do recognize that Palworld does pull from their audience and is clearly a Pokemon ripoff. But they don't feel their case is strong enough to go out after them for art infringement, so they're making up some shit that will damage everybody else. You see the problem?
Yeah. I guess at this point, I'm still not passionate enough until I see this thing move forward in a reasonable direction.
At that point, Connor, it's too late.
Yeah, fair enough. But it's kind of too late for any of us to do anything about it.
What do you mean?
We could say how bad this is. It's not really hard to.
Well, I mean, that's the point. That's the point of the platform, Connor, is so that we vocalize these opinions and thoughts, and have the thought piece and further the conversation.
But those things I don't think would affect a patent lawsuit. Those things wouldn't be taken into consideration, and Nintendo.
The court of public opinion is powerful.
Nintendo does not give a shit about the public court.
But Nintendo's not the one making up the rules here, Connor. Mm-hmm.
But they're the ones putting forth who. So who would cave to that? What
governments?
Specific court system?
Yeah, the government's in the court system.
Yeah,
I don't know how that works with international shit, because Palworld's not Japanese, or they are. No, they are Japanese.
Yeah,
so it'd be taken up in the Japanese courts.
Are they? No.
Pocket Pair is Japanese.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I know the director, I guess, wasn't.
No, the director's not. He's Norwegian or Swedish or something.
Okay.
Yeah. But Pocket Pair is Japanese.
Okay.
So yeah, I suppose it would fall under the Japanese government, and if the Japanese government goes in Nintendo's way, at least in Japan, game development, if you want to create something that even kind of resembles Pokemon, you got to go work for Pokemon. Mm-hmm. And there's no other way to build out a new IP or have a new idea or creative behind it, and it's just this fucking rut that you're in. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that works internationally if you start jumping over to other countries and making games like that, but I imagine but because a lot of these laws kind of align with themselves, Nintendo goes after music all the time because universally worldwide we all kind of agree on the rights of music, so they're able to kind of work with this with the other systems to do that, but here they're just making up new shit, and so I think if they win here, it sets a precedent that is dangerous.
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess the last thing I could personally say is looking at the Palworld ball there and seeing the patent of Nintendo's, they're completely different designs. Even if the function is the exact same, I don't know if that would prevent it from, because it literally has no similarities other than being a sphere in terms of design.
Yes, the animation is straight up a Pokeball.
Mm.
It's straight up. You throw it, scans them, it goes into the thing, and then it drops, and then it does do the little tick, tick, tick,
Which as you said before, they would make those minor changes.
Yeah, they'd have to change that completely. I think they should change it anyway. Like,
yeah,
just to avoid this problem in the future. You know,
but I guess I have another last point to make. It is kind of also a seemingly interesting situation because it's Pal World, which when you look at that, when I look at that game, I first thought, oh, this is a Pokemon game, and then I was like, oh, it's not.
Yeah,
and based on the designs.
Yeah. Well, they start toting guns, and you go, this is definitely not a Pokemon game.
Yeah. Kind of kills that.
But yeah. No, but yeah, that's my thing. If they were going after them for art infringement, I'd be like, totally well within the right. Obviously, that's IP infringement, yada, yada. But going after a game mechanic is where I go, all right, well, where does the buck stop there? Because, like, you can just draw new characters and make new characters, Yeah. And clearly, Pocket Pair was aping Pokemon designs to get that audience in, right? Mm-hmm. So you would just have to make up new shit, And so, like, that's fine. I've got no problem with that. If them saying, hey, that's my creation. You can't use my creation. Go create something yourself. Okay, yeah, of course. But if you do that to a mechanic, you limit creation entirely. There is no creation past that because I can't take this mechanic and use it and implement it and change it in any meaningful way in my thing because you've done this.
I guess another angle that Nintendo could be going for is they're doing this to try and do what they've always done, which is protect their stuff and be more broad in their, like, to prevent a Pal World situation from happening again. Because they clearly don't like, people aping off of their designs and their kinds of games.
Yes.
And so they just want to do it broader to protect their own interests. This being the stepping stone for their other, like, tons of shit that Nintendo does.
Yeah.
That's iconic to them that they can then use to defend themselves saying, hey, we're Nintendo. We do this. We did this fucking thing and we made a patent for it. Other people can't do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the problem. And again, then it just goes to, well, what mechanic is safe? Because I guarantee you, they get away with this. They're patenting jumping so fast. Moving on. Topic number 3. My second penny of the day